Welcome home, all. It is Tuesday, and we are getting toward the back end of April, finishing up this month. We'll be back on again Thursday. We've been pretty good about the Tuesdays, Thursdays. However, just a quick programming note before we begin. This Thursday, we will, and I promised this, I kind of alluded to it last week before we went off air. This Thursday, we will begin having a former Supermex International show when we had, the Supermex International Network, or the beginnings of it. And we'll be welcoming back an old friend. Her name's Maria, and she does, Maria Rengel, and she does a show called TV Música. And so in essence, it's a show dealing with television, movies, and music, entertainment. And she does a half-hour show in Spanish. This show is in Spanish. Mine's in English. And as I've stated, before, if you're watching my show, if you're watching Supermex International in any capacity, I'm not going to limit or turn away from English or Spanish. We're going to do both. Those are, for the most part, obviously, if you combine Mexican America with Mexico, the country, clearly, the largest percentage, is Spanish and then English. Those are the two languages, for the most part, that Mexicans, I would say globally, obviously there's some Mexicans in other countries, other places, but for the most part, Mexicans, people that claim that heritage, that descent, either from Mexico directly, the country, or Mexican in general, the heritage, the ethnicity, kind of like I do, even though I wasn't born in Mexico. I have Mexican heritage, and I feel that and willing and wanting in terms of claiming it. So of the two languages, those in English and Spanish are the two languages spoken mostly by Mexicans or Mexican Americans globally, and for sure, obviously, in the two particular countries, right? Mexico and the United States. So Maria does her show in Spanish. I do mine in English. We will have more shows coming as I get a little more set in our format, our scheduling, and other. There's more to come. I've been saying that for a bit, and I don't like moving on something unless it's good and ready to go. Sometimes you have to make a jump in and go into the water, but for the most part, I try to build slowly, methodically, steady base, steady, strong support, and then add, and that's kind of where we are. So Maria, as far as of last week when we talked, we've been talking about this for a bit, actually, for more than a few months, but I think we're ready now, and this is the way it'll go. So I'll do Supermex Nation, my show, and we may end up going, I have to get back to you, but we may end up going a little bit earlier at 6 o'clock instead of 6:30. We may begin at 6, and then I'll go roughly from 6 to about 6:45, 6:50. That leaves us a little bit of a window to, one, go off air for our show, Supermex Nation, and then transition Maria into basically the seat. We're going to be doing it in the same location, same facility, same studio. I will go off. I'll sign off officially. You'll get, no screen, and then we'll transition Maria into her show officially, coming up on this same YouTube channel, Supermex International, the YouTube channel, and Maria will be a show on there. And for the record, if those of you, if you've watched this show, some of you already know this because you've watched me from before this last iteration that we started back up again in November into December. But you know that we did have Maria on before, in addition to 4 or 5 other, shows that we did, podcast streams that were on Supermex International. You can find those in Supermex International's YouTube channel playlists in particular. If you go to playlists, you scroll down and you go toward the bottom of the offerings there, the selections, you'll see names and titles for multiple shows that were won in episodes, or how many streams or podcasts we did, right? So there's a Supermex Nation, there's Cheap Date Night, that's the one that I used to do, but there's also TV Música with Maria, so that's from 4 or 5 years ago. So she's back. She's going to start, and then we'll just plug her show again right into that format, and I'll be adding to her playlist just with a little bit of a hiatus, obviously, for some years there. But there were other shows, obviously. You can go find those all in Supermex International, the playlists option on the menu to look for videos. Okay, so Maria basically is just picking up where she left off for a number of years ago when I went off air, and I kind of stayed away from getting too engaged and commenting too much on the political. I needed that. I needed to get away from that. Not that it was like, well, it is good to not just think politically. That's my point. And wrapping up other things, doing other things, meeting people, dealing with other entities, organizations, arenas, nonprofit, etc. It's good. You don't want to be that person that's all you do nonstop 24/7. So anyway, so that's the programming note. Maria will be back on with Eve Musica this coming Thursday. We'll be on a little earlier, starting at 6 o'clock, roughly in that range. Hopefully everything goes smooth. But I'll come on, cut our show at about 45 to 50 minutes, which is what I've been aiming for, trying to get done. At 45 to 50 minutes, go off. We cut off air. And then Maria will premiere at 7 o'clock and go till 7:30. And there's your two shows for Supermex International. One, Supermex Nation, and then TV Musica to follow and piggyback right after us. So looking forward to that. Been working on this for a little bit now, and we're finally ready to go. And I do hope, I'm going to ask that some of my viewers, listeners, I know that some of you speak English and Spanish. I would say stick around for that day and just follow up as soon as we go off air and Maria comes on, about 5-10 minutes later, and she goes up and her show's in Spanish. You get both. You get an English show and a Spanish show from two Mexican people, two Mexican Americans, right? With two totally different subjects. Obviously, mine's a little more on the policy issue and politics side. Maria's is going to have more fun than I am. She's having more fun because she gets to do the entertainment world, television, movies, and music. Fun stuff. And maybe I want to get to some of that too, if not with her show. And for the record, she has had me on her show once before. It was an adventure because my Spanish isn't sterling. Still working on it. Not bad. It's better than what it used to be, which is almost nil, but definitely gotten better. And she kind of carried me through the conversation. The only issue, the major issue I have, and I'm going to do this to the point where it can be conversant, but I can speak Spanish to someone and get the message across and get understanding. As a lot of Mexican Americans, I'm not the only one, obviously. Not all are fluent in both English and Spanish. We have a smattering or an understanding, and then you have different shades or degrees of how good your Spanish is in relation to your English. Same here. So obviously I can communicate and converse and get a message across far better in English, which I'm more than tolerable, definitely above average as a language and as a communicator, speaker. But in Spanish, I have much more trouble getting my serious issues and thought out in an understood way for someone speaking Spanish. I can understand far more Spanish than I can communicate my thought in Spanish. And like I said, a lot of Mexican Americans are like that. I'm not the only one, obviously, but not every, but a lot of us are like that. We understand way more than we can communicate. So we have to listen. That's not always bad, right? You can learn a lot through listening. So let me leave it there. So that's this coming Thursday. Looking forward to it. I'm hoping you guys, at least the ones that can stick around and watch her show immediately after mine. I'll mention that on Thursday's show as well, asking you to stick around and watch Maria's show to support her and help her grow her show back up after a number of years off air. But, let me just leave it here and I'll move on as we open up tonight. Very few people on this planet can accuse me or come to me and say that I have not actively, openly, and tirelessly worked to help other Mexicans and Hispanics do their thing in a variety of ways, whatever those things are. I do that. And for the record, I'm not a blank check guy. I don't believe in just, giving a vote or support to someone because they got an EZ or an O on the end of their name. I don't believe that. You have to be a decent, good candidate or good person, etc. However, it is important that Hispanics, Latinos, Mexicans support each other, because if you don't, who will? And it's that simple. We've already gone over this. I've said this multiple times on many shows. We don't have a president. We don't have a vice president. We don't have a and then when I say we don't, meaning current and ever in the history of this nation. We're nearly 250 years old. So I'm not saying we don't for just today, like current right now. I'm saying ever, like in the history of this country. We have and have not a president of the United States, a vice president of the United States, a speaker of the House, a Senate majority leader, a Senate minority leader, a minority leader of the House, a Supreme Court justice. I can go on and on, but those are our three branches of government, the most powerful positions in our nation's government. And Mexicans have never had any of those, ever. So illustrating that point and bringing it up, sharing it with you obviously is important, and we need to point those things out. And so I'm gonna transition away from, what we're talking about, supporting, and I'm going to get real specific here. Mexicans in America supporting each other. Again, I don't think there's anyone on this planet that can legitimately say that I've not done that, either for them or others. I have spent a lifetime doing it. And for the record, it wasn't based on ethnicity or background or name or color. It was what I believed that you should do for anybody as I got out of the Army. And for the record, I mean, even with my father, before he passed, I believe in helping the little guy, little gal. I believe in helping those that do not have as much. I'm an underdog guy. I believe in helping underdogs. I believe in helping those that do not have. Why do you want to help somebody that's already got everything? Why do you want to help those that are already doing well? They've got plenty. So because of that, I'm kind of defaulting to the fact that I do support Mexicans and Latinos and et cetera, because we don't have, as I've enumerated the different positions in our government historically, we just do not. So I by default, I find myself having to. If you don't understand that, then my apologies to you for yourself, but someone has to. And so I have done that. And I'll continue to do that. And so I'm going to segue here and just to point out, because we've got plenty, and it's going to go by quick as it has been doing, or has normally done. I have said all of those things about Mexican America and Mexicans in America, Hispanics and Latinos as a whole, in general, for the whole country. I have made some statements on air on this show going back to when we rebooted and came back on in November of 2025 and into December. And I've made these statements about what I just laid out for you, the positions and the power that we do not have, or we have never had in this country in nearly 250 years of its existence, ever. And for the record, Mexicans have been here since the beginning. Now, Mexicans in America, for the most part, in 1776, weren't on the eastern seaboard in Boston throwing tea into the harbor, clearly. But they were in this country and this landmass at that time in California, and what would be California anyway, what would be Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Colorado, western states. Okay, they weren't states back then, all right? It was just big chunk of land that belonged to other entities. First belonged, by the way, I'm going to get back to it in a second, belonged first, obviously, to Spain, and then Mexico, and then basically, jacked by the United States. But before all of those organizations, those countries, those peoples, this country, or this part of what we're talking about where I reside now, California, didn't belong to any subgroup of individuals calling themselves a country. It was just the land there for everybody. Won't get into that. I think you can tell by my tone how I feel a little bit about that. But my point ultimately is simple. Mexicans, Mexican people of Mexican heritage were always here. They were just not known as Mexicans. They were just natives, native to the land. Native mistakenly used or mistakenly called Indians. And for those of you that don't know, Indians, obviously in America, is a misnomer. It was a mistake. People thought they were sailing to the Indies, to India, and they named the people that were here Indians. A mistake. You know, that's one that I think generally everybody knows. Anyway, the people that were here were natives to this land. A small portion or a piece of my ancestry is that I have ancestry that was here in California, Arizona, et cetera, at least I know that for sure, prior to there being a Spain or a Mexico or a United States. So we've always been here. All right. That's what I mean by we've always been here. We've always been here. So in that 250-year history, 1776 to now, we Mexicans in America, those people that were native and then given names by others, given names by people that either controlled or controlled them or conquered them, gave them names, but we've always been here. And so in that 250-year window, we, meaning those people, have never had place or position in this government. As I said, to reiterate the point, never had a president, never had a vice president, have never had a Senate majority leader, a Senate minority leader, have never had a Speaker of the House or a House minority, or a minority leader of the House, and have never had a Supreme Court justice. And that's all three branches of government. Okay. All the power, all the positions. Mexicans in America have never had one of those. And here's the segue. Lori Chavez de Rimmer, was in the Trump administration cabinet as the Secretary of Labor. So I'm bringing all that up because I have said that there's very little, if nothing, for Mexican, specifically Mexican-American representation in the Trump administration. And I've also said that I don't know if that's good or bad. I really don't. Why any Mexican would want to serve under Trump beguiles me, bedevils me. Just astounding. Like, I don't like serving anybody personally. And if you're one of those young bloods out there, you think you're a badass young dude, you're real badass until you're kissing someone's ass and you bend the knee. I don't bend the knee to anybody, anyone, including some punk ass president. No president, no politician, no party. I do what I want. Have I belonged to some things, belonged to other groups? Yes, over time, but I've never bent a knee. And if you want to be like me, that's not a bad thing to be. You want to be like Joe Rogan or the Schultz guy or the Theo Vaughn guy, kissing that ass and now backtracking on it. Oh, well, we didn't know. That's not what we signed up for. Because you're stupid. You fell for it. You liked it. You played the game. You kissed that ass. You bent the knee. And here's the difference. Those guys have, from what I understand, because I don't watch their shows, I never have, but they have, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of subscribers. So maybe Joe Rogan's building a nation of ass kissers. Because no one's going to tell me, because I saw it. I was watching the UFC fight that day that Trump rolled up right prior to the election. And Joe Rogan couldn't get out of his seat fast enough to go shake his hand and kiss that ass. And I've said before on air, it didn't break my heart. I'm well beyond that. I'm not in my 20s anymore. But I thought it was pretty sad. Like, I used to watch this guy. I used to watch this guy on Fear Factor. And then I watched a couple of his stand-up shows. He was funny guy, and he had his own show. And I thought that was kind of cool. He's like a regular dude that got into some things and made a name for himself. And he made some money and got some position. Thought that was cool. That's the American way, by the way. But I don't think the American way is getting there and then kissing ass to get more. I'd rather have none. And if you're watching my show, if you're one of my ex-wrestlers, if you're one of my ex-students, and you've been playing footsie with the Trump people, kissing Trump's ass too, there's time to come back. Now, I wrote this down the other day as I was watching a show. Not anything to do with political, but just watching something, it just kind of came to me. I wrote this down. It's never too late to do the right thing and turn your back on this traitor. All right, and I fully believe that 100%. It's never too late to do the right thing. It's never too late to do the right thing. And I wasn't planning on this tonight, but I'm going to say it now. If you're a young dude in America, Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, anything, American of any kind, anything, and beyond America, and you got hoodwinked, and you got fooled, and you believe that we shouldn't be fighting in wars for no reason, and we shouldn't be sending our buddies, and if you're young, you might even have friends that are in the army or the military, that our people shouldn't be in harm's way for oil or because Donald Trump wants to deflect from the Epstein files. If you honestly thought that he was a good businessman, which we're seeing he's not, he's really just a con man who hustles people out of their money. That isn't a good businessman, at least not by my calibration. If you actually thought he would be better for America, that Americans would be better off as a whole, that eggs would go down in price, milk would be less, gas would be less, we'd be safer because of him. If you honestly believe that, and I'm not going to call you stupid, because there are people that are stupid and there are some people that are not stupid, or at least not as stupid, and they want to believe because they're just tired of bullshit. I get that part. I've been tired of bullshit for a long time with what we normally get. But clearly at this point, if you are still making that calculation and pushing that line to get yourself to believe because you went down the rabbit hole with them and now you can't come out, I'm going to look right in the camera and tell you directly, it is never too late to do the right thing. So long as you are not dead and you still draw breath into your chest and breathe and think, it is never too late to do the right thing. For the record, some of you, those of you out there, if you're Trumpers and you're listening, not a lot listen to my show, by the way, but you have friends that do, share this with them. If you're afraid and scared, and don't get me wrong, it's not there's nothing wrong with being afraid and being scared. I have some fear of a few things, very few, but there are some things. If you're afraid or you have fear of repercussion and payback by coming out of that rabbit hole and getting off the Trump sinking ship before his fat ass dies and he goes off, and then we find out everything that he was doing, and then he's going to be lived and examined as the worst president in the history of the United States. Period. No debate. That is coming. So before we get to that point, get off the ship before that time. Because if you go down with him, then there is nothing for you. There is no remorse. There is no mercy because you went down with him. But I'm going to say again, you can get off that ship. It's never too late to do the right thing. Do the right thing. However, and I will say this, at least for the people that I know or that know me, I will clown the hell out of you. I'll be making fun of you for a long time. I will. I'm not going to back off on that. And here's why. Not because I want to make it personal and just rip on someone individually, but because with no repercussion, that is how we continue bad behavior and bad action. It must be understood and it must be known that Donald Trump was, moving forward in time, was the worst president in the history of the United States. Well, actually, he already was once. And that he quite literally enriched himself and his family and his friends in dollar amounts more than any president in the history of this country and more than all the presidents combined. That is what we are going to find. It's almost already there, by the way. Donald Trump will have milked this country of money more than all of the other presidents in our nation's history combined. That is corruption at the highest scale, at the highest level, in ways that we've never seen. And that I'm hopeful and argumentative that we never see again. Argumentative because something needs to be done and we need to go after it and make sure that it never happens again. There's going to need to be accountability. So Lori Chavez de Rimmer is of Mexican descent. She was the United States Secretary of Labor. She has resigned as of, I want to say yesterday, overnight. She is no longer the Secretary of Labor. She was the only Mexican American of any kind, any heritage whatsoever, in Donald Trump's cabinet. And she's gone. Quick sidebar. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to say too much about her tonight because I don't know all of it. And I need to read a lot more. I know the general broad strokes. But she's gone. She has resigned under suspicion and basically scrutiny of her conduct and actions as Secretary of Labor. Meaning there are corruption issues there. All right, let's just be blunt. She was doing some things that she was going to get caught for, and so she resigned. Kind of like Kristi Noem, kind of like Pam Bondi. Not a mystery, not a coincidence. Okay? So she's gone. And I'm only illustrating the point because she was not well known. She was just there. Literally a token. I hate using that, but it is the truth. Literally a token, Mexican, Hispanic. She's gone under suspicion and scrutiny of blatant, outright misuse and corruption when it comes to money in her position. Okay? I will follow up on this, not because I just want to hammer home on her, but I'm going to say this again. I've said it before. If you are a Mexican in America and you gain a position, you get something significant, a place, a position. Be clear here. And if you fuck it up for everybody that comes after you. Be clear. We have to do it better. We have to be cleaner. We have to not make mistakes so that more can follow. We don't have that luxury, as I've already said to begin this show. We cannot afford, Mexicans in America cannot afford to fuck it up once we're there. Cannot. I have specific examples in my life of people that I've seen that got in important positions and they blew it. And now we're not looking at any more Mexicans for those positions anymore. So if you're in, you have to do it good. You have to do it right. You have to do it clean, bigger, better, and to a greater degree by the book. You have to. So that's why we're going to point out Lori Chavez de Rimmer and find out what it is she did and the reason, impetus for the resignation and why she's no longer in the Trump cabinet. We need to have that out. If for no other reason, for us, Mexican America, for us, we need to find out. And that will come. Okay? And that was kind of this was literally overnight yesterday that I saw this. I knew she'd been under scrutiny already. I knew she might not last, but I brought her up, and I'm saying it now because I have pointed out that we have very little in terms of representation of any kind of Mexicans in any positions of power in this government or in this society, in this country. Go find one, go pick one, but for the most part, you understand what I'm saying. We don't. We don't. There is no single industry or arena that we actually control and run. I can say that for sure. We do not. Okay? So I'll find out or follow up and find out more when it comes to what she did or did not do, why she's gone, and the significance of it. Okay? Lori Chavez de Remer. So this feeds into a topic that we're going to finish up with, but I'm going to do just a real quick buy blow. You know, it's almost not funny anymore, but it is Taco Tuesday. And as always, as usual, Donald Trump threatened the Iranians. I don't even know. Like at this point, what does it matter? Like, what is he threatening them with this time? Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Little child. And there were going to be peace talks in Islamabad, Pakistan. For the record, let me put that on record right now. It is a sad case in American history that the most powerful military and country on this planet has to go to Islamabad, Pakistan to negotiate a peace. That tells you everything you need to know. If you really understand, if you really know, it tells you everything. That is sad that we have to go and be negotiated for. When in many ways, definitely over the entire Cold War period, going back to 1945, not quite a century, 3/4 of a century, we have been the peacekeepers. We have been the mediators, the moderators, the ones that broker peace. And now we're on the other end. And I'm not going to take a personal shot at Pakistan, but they're not us. And we're having to go to their place to negotiate a peace treaty, a peace deal. That is pathetic. It is sad. It is an indictment of where the United States is in its history and who we are in this history of 250 years of what used to be called the world's greatest experiment, democracy. Sad. Sad. So Trump threatened. Nothing happened. Iranians didn't cave or roll over. And then so, of course, Trump always chickens out. Taco Tuesday. Yet another Taco Tuesday. Literally, yet another Taco Tuesday. A joke at this point. If you're still arguing as a Trump MAGA member, trying to genuflect, contort, gymnasticize your body and your mind into places to justify the shit that he pulls and that you have to defend, I almost want to give you a hand. You know, I'll give you a hand. I don't clap. I give you a hand. I almost want to give you a hand for the tenacity you have of still defending Donald Trump's stupidity, idiocy, lunacy, idiocracy. You're a special brand of your own. You really are. If you're still defending this joke of a president who tacos and chickens out after making threats. And let's not forget. And I'm going to move on real quick from this one because it's standalone, simple, not much debate to it. There's no argument. There's no explanation. There's no need for comprehension. It is that simple. Trump threatened to wipe out their entire civilization. I laughed about it. I made statements about it on air. You're trying to wipe out a people that have been here thousands of years. Do you think you're the first idiot to think that you're going to wipe these people out? Do you think you're the first conqueror in world history to take out and control that particular region of the world? Monumentally asinine, incredibly stupid, different altering layers of reality, blatantly idiotic. I don't even have words, and I usually have good words, but not enough. This one's just asshat stupid. Donald Trump is going to be the guy in thousands of years of recorded history to solve Middle East peace and control those people. Dumbass. But if you're defending it, hey, nothing but love for you. God bless you if you're still defending it. Only God can have love for you. That's a special kind of stupid. Okay. What I've been paying attention to, and I've been making note here more than a few times, is that Trump's approval, basically approval is his job approval. Do people approve of the job that he's doing? It's simple. Trump approval plummets among Latino voters. And this was unique and it caught my eye because I read a lot, going through different topics and such, and doing my search, going through different newspapers, news outlets, media outlets, national for United States, and then outside, obviously, I've said that before, in other countries. But this one caught my eye because Trump approval plummets among Latino voters, which has been a trend and it's been ongoing, and I've commented about it before. And this is new. This is as of that. I think this is as of Friday, as of this past Friday, except in Florida. And it caught my eye because of that, because I know the why, but I want to illustrate that point. And I want to make sure my listeners, my viewers also know the why, if I haven't spoken to this at length or in depth, or at least to some type of cursory understanding of the why. Why would his support continue to erode, drop, plummet all over the country except Florida? And most of you should know. Latino voters across the country, a surprising part of Donald Trump's coalition in 2024, are now extremely dissatisfied with the president's policies. I've made note of this more than a few times. The percentage of Mexicans, the percentage of Hispanics, the percentage of Latinos continues to decrease and shrink in terms of supporting Donald Trump. Maybe it's because he's putting kids in cages. Maybe because people are dying in ICE detention facilities. Maybe because the overwhelming majority of those people that he's rounding up like animals and putting in concentration camps are brown people. People from Mexico and the rest of Latin America, Central America and South America, other parts. They're overwhelmingly Latino, Hispanic, and Mexican. And maybe, just maybe, some of you out there, maybe like me, Mexican America in California or New Mexico, Arizona, Texas, Colorado, and you're conservative and you believe in not wasting taxpayer dollars, you believe in a strong military, you believe in not spending people's money unwisely. Those are all conservative issues. I have those things. I have those issues. They're with me. But maybe you can't use that anymore as a justification to look away from people ghosted in the middle of the night, children taken from their parents, and people put in cages like animals in de facto concentration camps, a la 1930s Germany. Maybe, just maybe, if you feel that with me, you have a problem with that, and you're no longer a Trump supporter, or he's gone too far. That's what you can say. And as I said a little earlier, it's never too late to do the right thing. It is not too late. You see people getting shot in the face in the street, a young man getting shot in the back multiple times, unarmed with nothing in his hands, blown away 10 times in the back. Not even Mexican, not Latino, just human. Maybe you're tired of it. Maybe you're a Mexican friend of mine that is a business person and you count yourself fiscally conservative, and the Republican Party has always been there for you, not personally, by the way, but has been there for you at least in the thought of what they believe. Small business growth, small business ownership, create opportunity, merit-based, not unequal, but egalitarian and fair and equitable. And you think that's the way to rise and build your family and make money and live a good life, go to college, earn a degree, have a business, retire, have a home, and you think that's the American dream that the Republican Party can deliver you? But maybe you're seeing that as an illusion, a mirage. It's not actually the case. And you couple that with the reality of what we are living in right now today and where we are, and you see that this is not okay. That little kid that just lost his father because they picked him up on the street, and the kid's wondering where his dad's at. Oh, wait a minute, they're going to take the kid with them too. And that person is you only a few generations removed from when your grandparents or parents came over, across the border to live a better life, come to America for the dream. And they are you. They are you. Just a few generations removed. Maybe they came a little later. Maybe you came a little earlier. Maybe somebody came a little earlier than you. Never changes, right? It's all the same. And maybe now you understand. Maybe now you're beginning to understand the full scope, gravity, and weight of what we're seeing. And now you may think it's too much. And those numbers continue to plummet. And those numbers continue to decrease. Okay? So the alluding to Florida, as again, some of you should know, the only reason that Florida is different that way in America when it comes to Trump support or conservative Republican support in general is because of Cuban Americans. Now, officially, technically, Cuban Americans are, in fact, Hispanic. By that term definition, we've used multiple times on here. And they are, in fact, Latino. Okay, so they get subgrouped in. And they actually kind of skew the numbers because that is one subgroup, but they're a very, very hard subgroup when it comes to the Republican Party and conservatives in general, and Trump in particular now. And I won't get into it here because that would take another show, another hour, another 45 to 50. But let's just categorize it and say it outright that Cuban America is the most conservative subgroup in the Latino or Hispanic coalition of subgroups. And definitely when it comes to voting and politics. Okay? So that's the reason. But as a whole, if you removed Cuban Americans, then this thing's even worse for Trump. His numbers are even more miserable. Bad. So a couple things out of that I took out of this particular piece. In a nationwide survey of Latino voters conducted by Florida International University's Latino Public Opinion Forum, 67% of respondents disapproved of Trump. 67. 2/3. 2 out of every 3 Americans. An overwhelming percentage, an overwhelming majority. 67% of respondents, as of Friday, disapproved of Trump, and nearly the same amount said the country is on the wrong track, meaning shit's fucked up. With 3 major concerns, my point to you, and this is why I wanted to talk about it. 3 major concerns rising to the forefront are cost of living, immigration, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, immigration, and what we're doing with ICE and deportation, etc. And healthcare cost. Because healthcare costs are not getting better. They're only going up. Cost of living is not getting better. It's only going up. And we all know, full display, what immigration is right now. So Trump's net approval rating among Latino voters, and this is, let me be careful, the proportion of those who approve of his presidency. Okay, so that small percentage minus the proportion who disapprove. And there are far more that disapprove, so you'll see what I'm saying, is negative 36 points. Negative 36. Those that approve minus those that disapprove, and you're at negative 36. Not good. In Florida, he was down by only 10 points, the smallest gap in any state measure. Trump won the 24 election in part to a wave of Hispanic voters. And according to a Pew Research study, 42% of Latinos nationally voted for Trump that year. And that was a larger number than normal. Again, I've always said this, not the majority of Mexicans, not the majority of Hispanics or Latinos. The majority is against Trump, even when we led up to the election. But 42 is a better number than he got against Biden, and it was a better number than presidents on the Republican side have gotten in a long time. 42% voted for Trump that year. A marked increase from 2016 and 20, and 56% of Latino voters in Florida cast a ballot for Trump. Again, Florida being the outlier state in states across the country. However, the tide seems to have shifted as the issue of affordability, where Trump has struggled to find a resonant message, is now one of the demographic top concerns. Affordability. Mexicans in America, Hispanics in America, Latinos voters in America are not the wealthiest in America. We're middle income and below. So the affordability issue hits us harder than other subgroups. And that's why they're turning on him even more, because he promised to make it better. We're a year plus, going to a year and a half in, and it's not getting better. And he started a war, and it's not going to get better because everything's going up in cost. Trump's support among Hispanic voters subgroups is scant, with his net approval minus 53%, 53 points among Puerto Ricans. Good job, Puerto Ricans. Minus 48% among Mexican Americans, and minus 39 points among voters of South American background. And again, the only subgroup that he's good with is Cubans. So plenty of numbers, plenty data there for you. And to this is as of Friday. This goes to Friday. This past Friday. Numbers, I mean, you can't plummet much more. But I have been telling you that the numbers are going down for him. More Mexicans and Hispanics and Latinos are turning against him. But this is the first time that I've pointed out that there's only one subgroup that is still not as bad. That's Cuban Americans. And when you add Cuban Americans as a subgroup to the Latino vote, you can see how, like, okay, well, if they're strong for him, then that keeps the number over here. Again, it's still under 50% by far. It's still a minority. But remove Cuban Americans in Florida, and here's the illustrative point. The rest of the country, Hispanics, Latinos, and Mexicans, oh, hell no. That's the sinking ship, ladies and gentlemen, that Mexicans are beginning to figure out and jumping off that ship. And last thing on this particular topic, don't get me wrong, there are plenty, I'm not saying like a large majority or number in America, but there are still Mexicans running around, Latinos and Hispanics running around supporting Trump. And there will be. Not, I was going to say I suspect, but not even suspect. It's a case. It will be. There's always one. There's always a few. There always will be. Even when everything around them shows other. I mean, there are Mexicans. I mean, you can deport a guy's brother and he's still going to support Trump. Make some other rationalization or excuse for it, but they're fine with it. From there to this, and this goes to what I have felt all along since day one, going back to his announcement to run for the presidency in prior to the 2016 election. Because I wasn't an expert on Donald Trump, but I was somewhat informed. And I've told people, and I do believe 100% that he is a racist. Just because you have a friend or you know someone or you talk good about someone or someone says something good about you doesn't mean you're not racist. Doesn't mean you're not racist. Oh, well, look at all the athletes and the entertainers that he knows. Therefore, he must not be racist. Horseshit. He's racist. He just uses them. Ah, that's a clip. He's racist. He just uses them because that's what it is. He doesn't like them. He doesn't want to be around them. But it's increasingly and strictly transactional. What is he getting out of them? If he takes a celebrity and puts them on stage with him and he says something good about him, well, yeah, he loves them because he said something good about me. It's about as Philistine, Cro-Magnon, as amoeba in action as you can get. So I'm going to leave you. I'm going to finish up here in a little bit. That's what I'm going to leave you with. Because in my title, the last point to the title says Trump's racism in full view. Personally, I think it's been in full view the whole time. If after Charlottesville you didn't get it and you're still not there because it's years later and you forgot about it, but he did say, and as I've stated more than a few times, he did say there are some fine people on the other side, on both sides, with one of those sides being white supremacist neo-Nazis. If that isn't racist, then nothing is racist. Rhetorical. It is racist. That's as racist as you get. You're saying that white supremacists and neo-Nazi wannabes are fine people. I disagree entirely. I disagree vehemently. I disagree from the very core of what I am. And not because of my skin color, my ethnicity, or my name, but by history and the broad sweep of it. It is understood generally throughout the world for anyone with half an intellectual quotient, IQ point, that Nazis were racist people. Nazis were racist. White supremacists believe that all other races, colors, are less. It is racism. So here's the data today. It's been clear to me since the beginning with this guy. I have not hesitated, equivocated, altered my view. I have not. It's only gotten stronger and firmer in resolve. This is the point that I'm going to leave you with tonight. This is the data that I'm going to leave you with before I leave tonight. As we go off air and we go into Thursday. This is what I'm going to leave you with. This is within the last week and a half, a couple weeks ago. The United States, let me pull this up. Come on. There we go. The United States has let in, and understand this is all within the backdrop of immigration and immigration reform. Got it? Their rationale, the Trump rationale of people coming into this country and destroying this country because of who they are and what they do. The United States has let in 4,499 refugees since October of 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, all but three, 4,496 refugees have been allowed to come to this country since October of 2025. 4,496 people, refugees, have come to the United States. Out of the 4,499, 3 of them were not. 4,496 were white South African. Now, that is enough by itself. That is enough to stagger of the amount of people that we have let in this country. That Donald Trump has said we're going to do something about immigration reform. Of the 4,499 people that Donald Trump has led into this country, we by extension, that has led into this country, 4,496 of them are white South African. If that isn't cluing you in, if that isn't ringing bells, if that isn't sounding alarms in your head, as anybody else other than a white South African, maybe you are, for all I know, watching this show, I don't know. But if you're a Mexican, if you're a black man or woman, an Asian, anything other, and that doesn't clue you in to the in-your-face racism, de facto, by law, by our government's actions, if that doesn't clue you into the blatant racism, well then, ladies and gentlemen, you really are done if you're that person. If that doesn't bother you, if that doesn't anger you, if that doesn't show you clearly that we are a nation, a racist regime at this point. If that doesn't clue you in, then nothing will. In which case, you're probably not watching my show anyway, so what the hell does it matter, right? But I'm here illustrating the point to my audience so they understand. We have facts, we have data We have intelligence on our side. This isn't a mystery. This isn't subjectivity. This isn't hyperbole. Any other type of bully. This is right now. This is as of 1 week ago today. Since October, 4,499 refugees have been let into this country. And 4,496 of them are white South African. So if you're a MAGA Mexican, I'm going to have some fun here as we finish up for the night. If you're a MAGA Mexican, I beg you, I plead, I welcome you, I ask you, please help me understand how that isn't racism. I'm asking you. I'm legitimately, and I'm not even joking anymore. I really would like to psychologically understand the rationale for why you do not think that is racist or that racism isn't endemic in our nation's government today, right now. These figures are current. These figures are now. There's no debate. It's done. Please, MAGA Mexicans, enlighten me. Change my ways. Change my evil ways. Explain to me why this data is not racist. That Donald Trump only wants white South Africans to come. And quickly, as I pull out, zoom out, laugh out of this, for those of you in the know, a little more informed, obviously not coincidental, obviously not an accident, obviously not a mistake. There is clearly intention. There is clearly a plan. There is clearly an underlying rationale for this from someone or someone's multiple. And I'll leave you with this as we sign off tonight. I'm going to give you two names, and you do the math on your own. I'm not going to do it here tonight. I'm going to make you work a little bit. I love the show for the thinking Mexican. Love to make you work, especially if you stayed this long. The show for the thinking Mexican. 4,496 of 4,499 refugees are white South African of the entire total that we've allowed into this country since October of 2025. I give you two names, to wit. Two names as I sign off here tonight. Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. There's your homework. Supermex Nation. Know thy enemy. Know those who do to you. Know those who would like to see you gone from the face of this planet. Or, better yet, know those who would like to see you serve them on this planet. It's all there. It's all there for you. Nothing but love for you. We're out. We'll be back on Thursday again with Maria Rangel right after to follow us on our show, Supermex Nation, and into Teve Musica, her show. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Do your homework. Learn. Not a bad thing. It's all good, especially when you learn it for yourself. No one's trying to move you. Nothing but love for you. I'll see you on Thursday.